Good evening. The big story that is breaking this evening. The competition regulator, the CCI, has put the 2019 deal between Amazon and the Future Group in abeyance. The regulator has also imposed a fine of over 200 crore rupees on Amazon. Remember, this has been a matter that has been going back and forth for months now. In fact, we have joining us Praveen Khandelwal, the Secretary General of CATE. It was CATE that had in fact asked the CCI to review its approval for the future Amazon deal. Mr. Khandelwal, thanks very much for joining us. This is what you had asked the CCI to do. The CCI today is holding that deal in abeyance and also imposing a 200 crore rupee fine.
Well, we perceive it as one of the major steps of the victory of CIT, which was leading the front since last more than 2.5 years against the malpractices of Amazon. And the fine of 200 crores of rupees is certainly an indication for not only Amazon but other multinational companies also that they have to fall in line. They have to obey the law and rules of the land. And on the other hand, by suspending the future deal, I think it is also a good step in the larger interest of the economy, because the foul play of Amazon to capture the Indian industry or Indian trade has been given a big setback by CCI, and the entire trading community is highly elated on this decision of CCI.
Mr. Khandelwal, if I may come in on this conversation, Ashmit here from the Delhi studio. A quick question here. What will be the implications on the dispute that's currently pending? We understand it's pending before the top court, before the Supreme Court. What will this decision by the CCI do to the proceedings that are pending before the top court, which again is on the larger issue of that arbitration going forward and whether or not the entire deal, future retail deal, can be allowed?
See, now the basic fundamental of the agreement between Future and Amazon has been taken care of by CCI, and it has suspended. So that means that the basic pillar of the entire episode, which is going on in export, is certainly going to have a larger implication. And now Supreme Court may also take into consideration the observations and the action taken by the CCI. And certainly now, I'm pretty sure that Amazon will have to face the consequences of having a double standard in Singapore Tribunal and also in Supreme Court of India.
Mr. Khandelwal, if I may follow up, that of course is the follow-on impact that you're anticipating in the top court itself. But let's not forget that Amazon is also under investigation by the ED, which again has raised very important questions about the with the FDI regime in the country. A quick thought there that this clarification of position of sorts by the CCI by putting the investment, the approval investment under abeyance, what does this do to that investigation, which is also currently underway? The ED, one feels, will also be watching quite carefully.
Well, we all know that what kind of allegations have been leveled against Amazon. In ED, they are being tried for flouting the norms of FEMA. On the other hand, last 20 days back, Amazon was framed for supplying marijuana through its portal. So, in totality, if we see, the basic structure of Amazon is not to have a business environment, but to indulge itself into a kind of valuation game, which is certainly against the interest of the economy and the people of India. So I think, and I'm pretty sure that the recent decision of the CCI will go a long way, and it will have a direct impact on the investigations of ED, as also the Supreme Court and other various courts in which proceedings are pending against Amazon.
Right. I'm just taking a look at the detailed order that has now been put out by the Competition Commission of India in this matter. The Competition Commission basically saying that, of course, there is going to be the imposition of a 200 crore rupee penalty, and the Competition Commission also making it clear that Amazon ought to have notified the combination consisting of the three of the transactions that actually took place, and they believe that there was omission by design on the part of Amazon. Ashmit, you've gone over the details of what the order is saying?
what it does is that it takes into account the fact that the argument that Future has been making throughout. Importantly, Future had argued essentially that there are two shareholders' agreement in question. Number one is the shareholders' agreement under which Amazon had invested in Future Coupons. The other is the shareholder agreement between Future Coupons as the parent entity and FutureRetail as the subsidiary. The argument that FutureRetail has been making for a very long time is that these are two separate agreements. Just because Amazon is party to the first shareholder agreement with Future Coupons, that does not allow them any rights or any benefits or any control over the second shareholder agreement, which involves Future Retail. And that is the distinction that they're trying to make. And importantly, the CCI seems to have held as of right now that this is in fact the rights that Amazon is claiming under the two combined reading of both the shareholders agreement. That was not clarified to us. That was not made known to us. It wasn't told to us that through this investment via Future Coupons, Amazon is hoping to exercise at a later point in time rights over Future Retail as well. This was made out to be an investment which was exclusive to Future Coupons, and that seems to be the bone of contention here. That seems to be the understanding that the CCI seems to have concluded with, saying that, look, this is something that we'll take note of. This is something we'll take an exception to.
Right. Let's also bring in Manoj Kumar, the founder and managing partner at Hammurabi and Solomon Partners. Manoj, many thanks for joining us. This is the detailed order that's just come in from the Competition Commission of India, but some in substance of it, the deal, Amazon Future deal being held in abeyance and a 200 crore rupee penalty being imposed, being levied by the CCI on Amazon. Your first reaction?
Yes, in fact, this was definitely awaited and expected because Future had not, Amazon had not come clean with the CCI the first time around when they had taken the approvals earlier. So I still need to go into the details of the order, but I think CCI is taking exceptions of Amazon suppressing the real strategy and the real objective behind the Future transaction that they had entered into. Was definitely something that was expected.
Mr. Kumar, if I may come in on this conversation, let's also not forget that this entire arbitral exercise is still awaiting some sense of finality by way of the Singapore Appellate Tribunal. Just a quick sense there that given as how the CCI has hit out at what seems to be what Mr. Khandelwal calls as the very fundamentals of this entire transaction, is this something that the Arbitral Appellate Tribunal will necessarily have to consider going forward in granting its final decision?
See, we should understand one thing very, very clearly, that the arbitral tribunal constituted under the arbitration agreement between the parties in no way has any jurisdiction to overreach any statutory law in this country, and let alone institutions which govern specific areas. For example, CCI, which focuses on Competition Commission. So, in my view, the arbitral tribunal will definitely have to take note of the developments that we're discussing just now, irrespective of how the tribunal decides to deal with it. I think the law will take its own course in India.
Right. So just for the benefit of our viewers who are watching, while we go over the detailed order that's just been put out by the Competition Commission of India, here is where the story currently stands. And this dates back to 2019. That is when the Amazon FCPL deal was struck. What the CCI has done today by way of this order is impose a 202 crore rupee penalty on Amazon for providing false information and suppressing material facts. Amazon has been asked to file a detailed Form 11 for the transaction. So the current approval that was granted by the CCI for the deal is no longer valid. That is the important matter. Manoj, what could be the legal recourse now going forward?
Well, Amazon may definitely want to explore, challenging the order, and of course, in due course, we will see how the courts right up to the Supreme Court what view is taken. So that is a legal process available to either party who gets affected by an order like this. But it definitely takes away the basis for the arbitral tribunal which is constituted under the agreement itself, and what possible outcomes such a tribunal can take in Singapore. is going to be a very fundamental question, that if the transaction itself is something which is violative of the statutory laws in India, in what way an award under an arbitration agreement can later on be enforced, and what will be the sanctity of such an award. I think these issues will definitely also come into focus and be dealt with in addition to the relief that Amazon may want to seek by challenging this order today.
Yes, those are, of course, going to be important issues that we will have to now see what course this story finally takes. But at this point in time, what the CCI is saying, that there was deliberate design on the part of Amazon to suppress the actual scope and purpose. We're just, of course, going over the details of what the CCI order has said. But again, as we're pointing out, the sum and substance is that for now, the Amazon future deal has been put in abeyance. There is an imposition of a 202 crore rupee penalty that will be levied on Amazon. Amazon has 60 days to make that payment. Ashmit, any other details from the order?
Well, what's interesting is that this is the approval for the first investment that Amazon had made no longer is valid. That, of course, is something that the CCI has held. In fact, the CCI says and makes it very clear that there's the initial declaration by Amazon in no shape or form. In fact, Amazon sought to suppress the actual scope and purpose of that entire transaction, of that entire 1,400 crore rupee investment. But as Mr. Kumar was pointing out to us, this is, of course, there are legal remedies available. Amazon is likely to exercise them. The next appeal that will lie will be before the NCLAT. That's an option that one understands Amazon is likely to exercise in the days to come. But clearly, this is something that in the long run will have some form of implication. For a very long time, we've seen future counsels argue that a Delhi High Court order has held that Amazon's conduct has been one of tortious interference. Now it will be backed by the CCI order, which says that the very foundation of Amazon's investment, in fact, could be subject to regulatory moves here by the CCI. So again, big concerns for Amazon going forward. They'll, of course, have the remedy of approaching an NCLAT for seeking some relief in this case.
Absolutely. That will, of course, be the option they will consider. But once again, just to go through the CCI's order, the CCI says, and I quote from the order, Amazon suppressed the actual scope of the combination and had made false and incorrect statements in relation to the BCAs, which are intertwined into the scope and purpose of the combination. So those are some of the material highlights from the Competition Commission's order that has now left the deal between Future and Amazon in abeyance, as well as imposed 202 rupee penalty on Amazon, which it will need to pay over the next 60 days. We will take a break. There's a lot more coming up. Don't go anywhere. We're back in a moment. Welcome back. You're watching the CNBC TV 18 special as we take stock of the big corporate story that's come in via an order from the Competition Commission of India, the CCI ruling that the 2019 Amazon FutureRetail deal is no longer valid. The deal has been held in abeyance. The clearance given by the CCI is no longer valid. It's also imposed a 202 crore rupee fine on Amazon. The CCI order says Amazon failed to give true and complete disclosure with respect to the substance of its combination in this case. And it tried to use FRL to become a strategic asset for Amazon to expand and enhance its ultra-fast delivery services. Joining us now is corporate lawyer H.P. Ranina. Mr. Ranina, many thanks for joining us. So sum and substance, the deal that was cleared by the CCI but by way of this order now being held in abeyance, plus a 200 crore rupee penalty being imposed on Amazon by the competition regulator. Your first thought?
Well, I don't understand why they've kept it in abeyance. If they felt that the deal was vitiated by non-disclosure of the relevant facts, they should have simply, said that the deal cannot go through. But they're held in abeyance leaves a certain question mark. How long is it going to be in abeyance? What are going to be the conditions for once again reviving it? So really, there's a little bit of, uncertainty in this judgment. And the fact that they've imposed a huge penalty of 202 crores on Amazon, I think it's really a very stern step which has been taken. That where you don't make a disclosure of the true facts, this is a penalty and the consequence which you have to face. So that gives the right signal to people in future that they will have to make a full and honest disclosure of all the relevant facts. So in that respect, I think this order is very good. But on the issue of abeyance, I think it leaves a lot of question marks. How long and what case will it be again revived, if at all?
Very good evening, Mr. Ranina. This is Ashmit here from the Delhi studio. Just a follow-up question on the very issue that you raised, that this abeyance issue raises a big question mark. Again, we're seeking answers as well. As far as this understanding by the CCI has made it abundantly clear that Amazon had not been honest in terms of full disclosure about the scope of this entire transaction that they had envisioned, Future Coupons, and then via that, FutureRetails. And towards that, they have sought further clarification and a fresh submission coming in from Amazon. Is it safe to say that the initial clearance that had been granted has so far been revoked by courtesy of this order that has come from the CCI?
No, it has not been revoked. Had it been revoked, they would have said so in so many words. It's kept in abeyance. That means I think what I gather from you is that maybe they're asked for some additional information from Amazon, and until that Amazon gives the information, it's kept in abeyance. Once the information is given, thereafter the CCI will pass its final order whether to revoke or not to revoke. So this is what I gather from the meaning of the word abeyance, that they are waiting for some additional information and submissions from Amazon.
Mr. Ranina, again, as far as this entire question mark here is concerned, how should then the Supreme Court look at it? Because this is an issue where you point out that the permission has not been revoked, the approval has not been revoked, but nonetheless the Apex Court is hearing that question of the arbitral dispute and the subsequent future retail deal itself. How should the Apex Court look at it when at a time the CCI has made clear big concerns here that Amazon had not made full disclosure about that initial investment in the first place?
Well, as far as going to the Supreme Court is concerned, that will happen only on the second issue of penalty, whether this 202 crores has been correctly or is too high or too low, whatever it may be. But on this issue of abeyance, the Supreme Court will not hear the matter until the CCI gives its final decision. So on that point, they can't go in appeal to the Supreme Court. They can only go in appeal against this imposition of the penalty of 202 crores.
Right, Mr. Ranina, we will, of course, come back to you, sir, as we go through the order in more detail, and we will seek your insights on the way forward for Amazon. But thanks very much for joining us here this evening to take us through what is the big corporate story that is breaking on our screens. Good evening. Thanks for joining us on this special Newsmaker edition. I'm Shireen Bhan. The big story that's come in this evening, the corporate development of the day. The competition regulator, that's the CCI, has put the 2019 deal between Amazon and the Future Group in abeyance. The regulator has also imposed a fine of over 200 crore rupees on Amazon. The CCI has observed, and I quote from the order, Amazon had suppressed the actual scope of the combination and had made false and incorrect statements in relation to the BCAs, which are intertwined into the scope and purpose of the combination, end of quote. My colleagues Ashmit and Shilpa have been going over the details of the order copy, and they join me here as well. Ashmit, to you first. Take us through what this now means as far as Amazon and Future are concerned.
Well, for all effective purposes, CCI, by holding that there was misrepresentation by Amazon, has called into question its approval that it had granted for Amazon's investment of 1,400 crores in FCPL. So at least as far as that question is concerned, partially has been answered by the Apex Court to the extent that Amazon did not make full disclosure. That seems to be the indication coming from the order. The order very clearly records that there seems to have been a deliberate design on part of Amazon to suppress the actual scope and purpose. Also goes on to say that Amazon had misrepresented that its decision to pursue the combination was based on the unique business model of FCPL or Future Coupons. So that seems to be the clear indication. Secondly, the CCI is very clear that this is in violation of the norms in terms of declaration, and towards that end has gone ahead and slapped a penalty of 202 crore rupees. So that further cements the position that CCI has been taking, that look, this is clearly a case of misrepresentation that has been done. The third aspect to keep in mind is that the CCI, for now, seems to have allowed Amazon an additional opportunity to come back and this time make a full disclosure under the relevant forms, and then perhaps the CCI will take a decision, a final decision of sorts, on whether or not an approval needs to be granted. But again, as panelists earlier on our show pointed out, that this raises very, very fundamental questions about the nature of investment itself that has been made by Amazon into future coupons.
Absolutely. And what is also clear is that the approval that was granted previously by the CCI, that approval is no longer valid. So the deal by itself has been put in abeyance by the regulator, and the approval previously granted is no longer valid. My colleague Shilpa Ranipet has also been tracking this story closely. She's joining us as well. Shilpa, you know, it was the trade body, the Traders Association, Kate, that had written to the Competition Commission. It was also independent directors of Future who had reached out to the Competition Commission, to SEBI, etc. Given you know, where things currently stand, take us through what their argument was, and more importantly, other important aspects that the order highlights.
Right. So I'll start with the future coupons complaint was earlier this year, but then last month the independent directors of FutureRetail had written to CCI where they did allege that Amazon had made misrepresentations to CCI about the deal. Now their allegation was that Amazon in fact intended to invest directly in FutureRetail and not in future coupons. And because of the current FDI norms that did not allow that, and because of the Press 2 norms, they had to go into a two-step process where they invested in future coupons, and then future coupons invested in FutureRetail, which gave Amazon an indirect stake. So the independent directors had alleged that the strategic interest was always in FutureRetail, and this is a misrepresentation because it did not disclose this to CCI when it sought the permission for the deal back in 2019. And this is also what Kate, the Traders Association, was also saying, that you know there is FDI norm violations also here because direct investment into a retail entity currently is not allowed. So these are what the major allegations were raised, and CCI now in its order also has said that this was deliberately by design, and that Amazon had not disclosed that there was a 2-3-step combination to this, which, like I explained, was the future coupons, then the future retail investment. And now CCI has said that it is going to go back and it's going to relook at the entire deal with fresh, correct and true information. And until then, this deal will be in abeyance.
All right, Shilpa, I'll come back to you in just a second, but joining us now is Krishnan Venugopal, the lawyer of Kate. Mr. Venugopal, many thanks for joining us here on the program. We're just going over the details of the order that's come in from the Competition Commission and, more importantly, the implications. This was, of course, a matter that had been raised by the Traders Association body. Kate, I want to get your first reactions on what we've heard today from the CCI.
Well, I think the CCI has given an important message to applicants for permission for combination, that if they don't make full disclosure in a manner that permits the CCI to evaluate the implications for competition, then regardless of everything else, they will take serious action against such applicants. And in this case, it's very clear that Amazon had not revealed the entire sort of interconnected series of steps that they had originally contemplated when entering into the arrangement.
Mr. Venugopal, if I may come in on this conversation, Ashmit here from the Delhi studio. As far as the impact here is concerned, we're talking about, you said the CCI, making it abundantly clear, has clarified now that there's no scope for misrepresentation, recording that Amazon, in fact, did not make full disclosure. Going forward, we understand this hits at the very heart of this entire transaction, Amazon's original investment in future coupons. That seems to have been the very foundation of their argument that they had raised first before the arbitral tribunal, then before the Delhi High Court, and finally before the top court. What impact will this have? The Supreme Court, of course, put it on hold, wanted to watch for CCI's stance. The CCI now has clarified what is the way forward. How should the Supreme Court look at this going forward?
I can't really tell you how the Supreme Court will look at it, but I can tell you that the submission is going to be, in all likelihood, since we are not party in that proceeding, the submission is going to be that now the entire interim award given by the arbitral tribunal is at issue now, in the sense that it could be set aside on the ground that it did not take into account the public policy implications, or the fact that now that the CCI approval is no longer there, it is immediately in conflict with Indian law.
Let's
However,
also not forget the CAIT on many occasions.
As far as the Confederation of All India Traders is concerned, however, we are completely opposed to Amazon's investment in Future, because if Amazon brings the same practices to the retail world that it follows in the online marketplace that it runs, it seriously jeopardizes our interests.
That, in fact, Mr. Venugopal, was my very next question here, that the CAIT has raised much larger questions, questions larger than just misrepresentation before the CCI. The CAIT on various occasions before the government, before the media, has raised questions that Amazon, plain and simple, is in violation of the FDI norms. It's looking to exercise control in a market where the laws don't provide that. The ED investigations are underway. How do you imagine the ED will now look at it when the CCI seems to have answered that question that, look, no full disclosure had been made in the first place?
I am not really privy to the ED's, the proceedings that ED has taken against Amazon, so I don't want to comment on that. And that they are, of course, a criminal investigative agency, so what they will do, I can't say. But we have been pursuing these issues in the courts as well. And we have also filed applications before the CCI that we have pursued before the court, where Amazon has gone and tried to quash complaints that we made or our members made before the CCI. So from our perspective, it is very clear that we don't wish Amazon to have a foothold in Indian retail. And they would have a huge, expansive stake in India's brick-and-mortar stores and an all-India presence if they're allowed to invest in Future. So that was one of the issues that we raised before the CCI here, that if Amazon hasn't revealed all the implications of the other arrangements that it has in relation to its investment in Future Coupon, then it amounts to gross misrepresentation. We called it suppressio veri suggestio falsi, which means that by suppressing certain facts, you have given a false impression to the CCI, and that's very evident from the order as well. If you look at the scope of the approval, if you look at the scope of the transactions evaluated in the approval order, it's very clear that the CCI was not alive to the implications of the FRL shareholders agreement, the manner in which Amazon could exercise indirect control over FRL through Future Coupon, the call option that they had, as well as the business commercial arrangements. These aspects of the matter were not placed front and center before the CCI in the first place. And of course, the purpose, the object of Amazon's investment was also suppressed before the CCI. So these aspects of the matter are of great concern to the Confederation. We can't really allow online marketplaces to also control brick-and-mortar stores across the country, because that seriously curtails our ability to survive as traders. This is, of course, without prejudice to our stand that online marketplaces also have to be regulated, because the kind of deep discounting that they do seriously harms Indian traders who operate out of brick-and-mortar stores.
Right, Mr. Venugopal, appreciate you joining us here to take us through what you make of the implications of the CCI's order that's come in, holding the Amazon Future deal in abeyance and imposing a 200 crore rupee penalty on Amazon. We will take a break. There's a lot more coming up. Don't go anywhere. We're back in a moment.